Hey, you guys, thanks for listening in to this episode. On today of Tis with Tea, I have Mr. Geoffrey with us. Hey, Mr. Geoffrey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much. Great to be here.
Thank you so much for being on the show today. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
I'm a visual content producer, which sounds kind of fancy, but I basically help people create story driven content. And it's in the form of usually sometimes graphics, but mostly video and in particular animation. That's kind of my jam. So I
Awesome.
work with clients across kind of different industries who want to create some content. Could be for onboarding or training, could be for their website or social media. And a lot of what I'm looking to do is ads, so digital ads or ads for TV and things like that.
Awesome. So, tell us, how was your entrepreneurship journey for you?
It's been an interesting one because my father and mother, my dad's been was in the same job for 36 years, and not an entrepreneur. He worked as a civil servant. He was a judge, and so I didn't really have a role model of an entrepreneur until much later in life. And I worked kind of I don't want to say in a corporate environment, but I worked in the film industry. I worked at a studio, which was not the entrepreneurial. And I ended up, my journey started really when I moved to England. My wife is British, and I moved to England and started a real estate company initially with my father-in-law, who is a true entrepreneur, has done all different things, and kind of learning to follow your passions. And unfortunately, my entrepreneurial journey started by in real estate where I don't have a passion, and so it was hard to run a business that you don't love, that's not really engaging. And I did it for a long time and was frustrated. And eventually, I thankfully was like, okay, I gotta find something else to do that's gonna fulfill me. And I ended up getting a job for a design agency in Manchester, England, and loved it. And I was like, oh my God, I found it. Marketing. It
Mhm.
was kind of, I could take business and creative and kind of put it together. And it was like, I found what I wanted. And then it's just gone from there. So I ended up working for a brand marketing agent. So I had my own company, and then I ended up working for another kind of entrepreneurial small marketing agency, and then for a brand marketing agency when I moved back to the states. I moved back to Philadelphia. But after running my own company, I kind of wanted to do it again. But now I got to do it in the area that I loved. So I started a marketing company 5 years ago, and we did a lot of different things when we first started. I think one of the entrepreneurial journeys is when you're starting out, um, you kind of just do whatever works.
Mhm.
But over time, what I've been able to do is find what I really like within that field. And so there's lots of different things in marketing, from SEO and social digital, and visual content and visual storytelling is really what I love to do. And so I
Mhm.
help people craft their story and then create it and bring it to life in either video or animation.
Awesome. So I'm glad you said telling a story. So how can we effectively communicate by telling our story or telling a story?
Yeah, I believe very strongly that the best way to communicate is by telling a story.
Mhm.
And there's research and science that proves kind of that's the way, that when we tell a story, that's what engages our audience, that's what connects with them, that's what enables them to understand what it is we're speaking about, so whatever our product or service is, and then remember us. So that it's important that as a in business, you want people to make sure they know that they saw you, and then, oh wait, now they've remembered you beyond that moment. So telling the story is that's kind of the why story matters. And then people are like, well, how do you do it? And interestingly, when I tell people the number one kind of tip that I have for telling a story, it isn't always, it's kind of like they scratch their head and then they say, oh, that does make sense. And I teach at a university, and I developed what I call the 11th commandment. And I always tell my students, if you remember nothing else, remember the 11th commandment, which is know thy audience.
Mhm.
So, as much as telling the story may not be about a specific person in your audience, it has to speak to them. It has to relate. It has to resonate with your audience. So, you need to understand who your audience is and what matters to them when you're developing your story. And so that's one of the tips. And then it's about, okay, what's once you know that, then it's about, okay, how do you craft a story that's going to resonate with them? That's going to on an emotional level going to resonate, and they're going to want to be engaged in what you're talking about.
Yeah. So how can we do that? How can we craft a story? And or I think you said it's a story pad. So what is a story pad and how can we use it?
Right. So I'm a simple guy, so I needed something simple to help people, and I believe in kind of keeping things simple. So I created. It's based on the three act structure, which was Aristotle developed back in 350 BC, and is how most movies and most books and most stories are told. You have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So I developed the story pad. The PAD represent the beginning, the middle, and end of your story. So you always start with the P, which is the problem or the pain of your customer. So again, you're starting with your customer because they don't care about what you do. They only care about what you can do for them. What's in it for me? So when you start with the pain or problem of your audience, they'll pay attention because they're like, oh, wait, this is about me. I have this problem. Let me listen.
Mhm.
And then you have the opportunity to share, okay, well, here's the answer to your problem. That's the A of the middle part of the story, where you provide the solution that your product or service enables them to do. And that's where a lot of people stop, the P and the A, and they're like, oh, pa. I'm like,
Mhm.
no, it's the story pad. And the D is the difference it makes to that audience, to their life or to their business. So that you've set up, oh, yes, they have a problem and we can help solve that problem. And when we do, this is the impact. This is the difference it's going to make. And that's the formula we use with a lot of our clients to develop a lot of their promotional or marketing stories, to start with the people you serve, the people that you can help. Start with what's ailing them, show them how you can help fix it, and show them how much better their life will be or their business will be as a result.
Awesome. So Jeffrey, I guess how did telling your story help to impact your business so people can kind of understand like the importance of it?
I've had a non-linear path in my career.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I tell my story, it helps people. They find it interesting because the twists and the turns. One thing about stories is there needs to be conflict. So
Mm-hmm.
if you have a story that kind of starts here and kind of goes the same old, it's a boring story. You need the ups and the downs. You need the highs and the lows of that makes it interesting. So when I talk about, well, I started off, and I was at law school and didn't want to be a lawyer, and it was pretty horrible. And then though, I decided to just go for it and go to the film industry. And so people are like, oh, cool, you followed your dream. And then I really found my dream and I followed love. And so there's a little love element in my story.
Mm-hmm.
And then unfortunately, I worked in real estate that was, sucking my will to live. So even within my own story, you have the ups and the downs. And then I found my passion in marketing and in visual storytelling. And so it has a happy ending. And so it's about, when I share my story with people, they understand the variety and the challenge that no one's life is, oh, everything's great. That's not reality. And so I think, again, it's important for us to recognize that and to recognize it in the people that we're trying to help. If everyone's doing well, then you may not be able to help them. But
Mm-hmm.
the idea of any business is, how can you help someone?
Mm-hmm.
That's the story you need to tell based on their experiences and what's going on with them. And then I think it's really going to resonate with them.
Yeah. Yeah, all about helping other people solve, get a solution to their problems pretty much. And then telling your story helps people to be able to relate to you because now it's more so people are looking for someone that can actually relate to what they're dealing with. So
Exactly.
you can kind of understand what they're going through and have some type of sense of compassion about what they're going through. So I definitely agree that telling your story is important so you can be able to relate to potential clients and customers, and you can help them get the solutions to the problems that they're experiencing.
Exactly. I think it's so important to be in business with a purpose, and that purpose has to be about serving your clients.
Mhm.
It's the only way that, and because I think people's radar for BS is so high that if you're not authentic, and this is another piece of compelling stories, if you're not authentic in your storytelling, people are going to see it. It's going to come through, and that's why I think it's much more important to have authentic, genuine stories than perfectly constructed and beautifully shot and all the rest of it. That's why sometimes even the iPhone, you take a video on your iPhone, that can be almost as compelling as a high production story, video that's done. Even though I think there's a place for both. But my point being that regardless of how you're telling a story, you want to make sure you're staying true to who you are and in the ways that you help people.
Mhm. Awesome. Well, thank you, Mr. Jeffrey, for coming on the show today, giving us your helpful tips. So I'm gonna share the social media handles. You can tell our listeners how they can get in contact with you and what type of services that you're offering if you would like to do so.
Sure, the easiest way is to go to the website, which is 9dotsmedia.com. And 9dots media is, for me, from a business perspective, I'm also a speaker. So Geoffrey Klein kind of is the speaker stuff, and 9dots media is the way to get in touch with us, where we can help craft your story and then bring it to life with awesome animation or vibrant video.
Awesome. And if you guys want to get in contact with me, feel free to do so. My number is 910-317-0396. You can also shoot me an email at contact@mjfinancial.biz. You can schedule a consultation, you guys, on the website at www.mjfinancial.biz. You can find this episode on Anchor, you guys, and you can find the playback for this video on the YouTube channel for MJ Financial Management. So thank you once again, Mr. Jeffrey. I highly appreciate you today.
Thank you so much, Tia. I appreciate it.
And all right, you guys, we'll see you on the next episode of Tips with T.